Rail and data. If you imagine rail and think about the last time you used a train, or what concepts come into your mind when you're thinking about trains, you probably envision yourself sitting in a train, watching the landscape passing by, or maybe sitting at the platform of the station where you're annoyed waiting for the next train and thinking, why can't the train provider tell me more accurately why the train is delayed? Some of you might even think about the logistic part of rail transport. And if you think about these things, then you can immediately imagine that there are a lot of things that are connected with data in the rail business. And well, we are working on getting this connection even stronger, and by using good data, building the foundation for the digital transformation. My name is Lara Spendier. I am working for the Austrian Federal Railways, the ÖBB. And currently, I recently changed positions. I am now the head of the transformation office. But before that, I was, as you can read in the title, I was the chief enterprise architect for information and data management, which means that in the last 3.5 to 4 years, I could define and establish the topic of information and data management within our group. And in the next couple of minutes, I would like to tell you more about how we did it and what our visions are to where we want to get with our data. I don't know how many of you know the Austrian Federal Railways, like ÖBB, very well. So let me just tell you a couple of things that might be interesting regarding the organizational structure. Like, we are a group and consisting of several subgroups. We have one subgroup that is the infrastructure manager for railway in Austria. We have one subgroup that is concerning the passenger travel, and another subgroup that does the rail cargo group, which does the whole rail and cargo transport for Austria and other parts of Europe. Like the rail cargo group is an international group working on the European level. The infrastructure manager and the personal passenger companies that are more focused on the Austrian country. And as you can imagine, as a group, so many subgroups and companies, we own a lot of data. We have a lot of data about our trains, like how they are put together, what parts they consist of, when they have to be repaired. We have a lot of data about buses, because one of our companies is also an Austrian passenger bus company. We have a lot of buildings. As you can imagine, all the main stations and train stations that are in Austria belong to the infrastructure group of our group of ÖBB. There is, if you think about waiting in a main station, there are a lot of shops there. So we also rent out shop floors. We make sure that there is a coffee company where you can get your coffee when you are waiting for a train or when you are leaving. We have a lot of wagons, and these wagons where we transport our goods, they also have a lot of sensors. And I mean, all the trains and buses, they have a lot of sensors and signals installed. So we get a lot of data there. We have information about the passengers, about the customers that use the train for travel reasons. We also, of course, have a lot of data about our business customers, the companies that want to transport their goods, the companies that are transporting the toilet paper and the pasta that we wanted to stash during the pandemic in our homes. They were partly transported by trains as well. And of course, our group, in our group, we have more than 40,000 employees. So we have a lot of employee data. And no company works well without the vast number of reports and management reports about sales numbers, etc., as you can imagine. So we really have a lot of data. And what do we want to do with this data? We want to keep an overview of this data and know exactly where our data is. And we want to make this data accessible for the people that are allowed to use it. We want to process data efficiently and use modern data analytics and machine learning methods. But for that, you need a high quality base of your data. We want to do these things not only to have good high quality data, but we want to generate additional value. We want to generate new products. We want to be better at certain things. And we want to enable and drive digitalization. We want to really make use of the modern and digital work methods that are out there and are ready and are waiting for us to be used. So for all of these things, we need a systematic and structured way to deal with our data. And this is what we understand by saying we have established or started to establish an information and data management in our group. So if we are talking about information and data management at ÖBB, we can say that it is built on 4 main principles. And these 4 main principles are here in this table, in this pyramid, and they are based on each other. Also, I want to add here that these 4 main principles are valid in the whole group. So the first one is that information and data are an asset. What do we mean by that? We ask ourselves, like, which information and data do we have? Where is it stored? And we use these questions and we want to answer them by using certain software, a certain software like we have or we are implementing a data catalog in our company, which I will get into in the next couple of minutes as well. But for example, we also have data models on the group and subgroup level that are on a conceptual basis. Like, it's not a physical data model where we put there all our tables and if it's an integer or a character value and if it's restricted to a certain number of characters, but it's more a conceptual level of a conceptual data model where we see like which are the important entities that we base our business on that are used in our business. The second principle is that our information and data is well managed. So we ask ourselves, how do we handle our information and data? Who are the people that are responsible to keep the data in a certain quality, to keep the data in a certain way? What are the processes to deal with our data? And what we did here was that we defined a group-wide information and data management governance framework where we define certain roles and where we define certain information and data management processes that are valid throughout the whole organization. We also started to implement some organizational structures. For example, in each of our subgroups, there is a dedicated data manager who is responsible for the strategic point of view on how in the respective subgroup what the view on data is and what they want to do with the data. So if we know which data we have and how we are dealing with it to make it in a high quality, to have it in a high quality, the next thing is, of course, that we want to use and also reuse our data. So we ask ourselves, like, how do we use information and data? And of course, we already have some data applications in place. We use reporting, very in many areas. And we also started to use, of course, data science and machine learning methods. We implemented a group-wide big data platform, which can be used to use certain data science and machine learning methods on a basis like where we can also share data and information between the various groups. And the last one is that if we have our information and data in place and it is of a high quality and we know how we use it and how to reuse it, we also want to share the information and data that we have. And so the question that comes with this principle is, how do we share the data internally, but also externally? And we have, for the external sharing, we have an open data portal in place where you can find certain information from our, about our, I don't know, for example, train stations, and where you can purchase train tickets, etc. But we also have certain internal sharing platforms that enable us to share data between our subgroups, and always within the laws of Austrian and the Austrian laws that come with the whole business here. Just a quick thing between the slides. If you have any questions, yeah, someone already posted a question. I will go into the questions later in more detail. We have enough time for it, but just feel free to write your questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer them in the end. As I already said, an essential part of our foundation for information and data management is the ÖBB data catalog. And when I'm talking about ÖBB data catalog, then we are talking about 3 building blocks. The first building block is a business glossary. It contains a description of the data. So, but not a technical description. It is a description that is orientated towards the business user. For example, we have a common definition, of course, what a train is or what a train path is. There might also be differences between certain definitions of such an object. For example, a customer has a different business definition for the company that deals with the personal passengers, like the passenger transport for private individuals, but a customer is different for our cargo transport company, and also different for our infrastructure manager. So, of course, we have some common definitions that are valid throughout the whole group, but we also have definitions that are focused and towards one of our subgroups. The second building block is a data dictionary that contains the data documentation, where we provide information on who is the data owner of this data entry, who decides or who is able to retrieve this data, who is responsible for holding the quality high, so to speak, in which applications is this data item used, where is its main source, the golden source of truth, so to speak. And if I, as an employee, want to get this data, who do I have to ask in order to be able to see the content of this data item? The third building block is the data lineage, where we want to show how the data flow of certain data items is going. Like, where does it start, where is the source, and where is, for example, the report that a data item ends up in. But by using such a data lineage, we want to make apparent if there are problems with applications, and if there are problems with data quality, like where is the application where the data quality breaks, for example, or if we have several KPIs that are calculated with different sub items, like why does it happen like that if it's supposed to have the same source, for example. So we want to make this accessible and show it in a graphical overview. We implement this, the implementation of this data catalog is a group-wide program. It's a software that is accessible for the whole group. So we implement it for the whole in a group-wide program. We use a use case-based and an iterative approach to ensure a benefit for our business users and make a result seen really quickly. And the third thing is that we don't want to just put there a certain software and then let it fill itself, so to speak. We combine the whole program with strategic measures to ensure that the organizational structures that are needed for settling and using such a program using such a software, that they are really there long term and are in our organization, and to make sure this happens. Last but not least, information and data management enables us to implement our digital strategy. In the beginning, I showed you this table where we said we wanted to keep an overview. We want to process the data efficiently and use data analytics, machine learning methods. We want to generate additional value and enable and drive digitalization. So what are the use cases behind that? First one is, of course, as you can imagine, condition-based and predictive maintenance is a huge topic for us. We would like to know that the air conditioning is going to break and has to be repaired before you are sitting in the train with, I don't know, 40 degrees Celsius out there and are sweating because you're in between stations. So we are putting a lot of effort in getting a high quality database to be able to apply data science and machine learning methods to go into this topic of condition-based and predictive maintenance. We want to do efficient reporting. Like sometimes we have reports that consist of the same KPIs, but maybe you know it. Maybe you know the situation that some of the sub items of this KPI or the sub parts of this KPI are not exactly the same as they should be. So we want to go to the bottom of that and make our reporting more efficiently and better. We want to have efficient resource scheduling. As you can imagine, we have a lot of resources. We have a lot of different trains. We have different wagon material. We have different people who are allowed to drive certain trains on certain train paths. And we have to schedule this. And these are problems that are working very well in the standard way, like when you plan ahead. But as you can imagine, if there are some short-term problems, like when a train breaks down or something, or some paths are closed, or a train is broken, then we have to adjust our schedule and everything. And this is where it gets really complex. So of course we want to get better at that as well. And for these things, you need a better and a high quality databases. Of course, we also want to optimize our product development. We want to give you as a traveler, or you as a business customer of our train services, we want to give you good products. We want to give you not only a high degree of service, but we also want to make sure that you are using and you're getting the best products that are especially tailored to your needs. And as we all know, we need good data for that as a basis. And of course, also train path planning and timetable planning. It's a large topic that goes hand in hand with the efficient resource scheduling as well. Because as an infrastructure manager, you don't only plan train paths for one or two train companies, but for several train companies, and here apply similar restrictions and a high complexity of the planning problem. And of course, there are many more use cases that I cannot go into more detail right now, but I'm also happy. Apart from the questions that I'm going to discuss with you right now, if you have some more questions, you can also contact me directly.